Bulaminaka and good evening to you all. My fellow Fijians, I come to you tonight to speak to you about government's plans to allow us to resume as much normal activity as possible while we work together to put an end to this pandemic in Fiji. I say work together because defeating this pandemic is a job for every Fijian. It is a national effort, and we all have to do our part. We simply must be able to contain this virus without shutting down large parts of the country yet again. We have accumulated a lot of knowledge about how this virus is spreading in our country, and we are going to put that knowledge to work, not just to stop it in its tracks, but also to recommence economic activity. I am speaking to you this evening from my home, because all members of parliament who were physically present in last week's sitting were asked to home isolate for 4 days when an admin staff member of parliament was identified as the primary contact of a positive COVID case. As you can see, this virus can affect anyone almost anywhere. After observing the patterns of infection in this country, which are now primarily centered in the Subalemi-Nosori corridor, we have developed specific responses that are targeted to the conditions there and in other parts of the country. We know that we need to defeat the virus and keep the country moving and working as much as possible. That requires a targeted surgical approach. First, I want to tell you that after having no cases in the Nandi area for 17 days and 20 days in Notoka, we since yesterday recorded 2 cases in Nandi. That is not the best of news. But the good news is that we have excellent knowledge of the movements of these 2 persons, and we will be able to establish a small lockdown area in Koroviri settlement near Nawaka village, where these 2 cases are resident, and of course stop the virus there. From now, the establishment of specific locked areas and teams made up of Ministry of Health and Medical Services, the RFMF and Fiji Police, sweeping across suburbs and localities in high-risk zones, screening and swabbing, will be a major part of the targeted surgical approach. As I have stated earlier, we continuously are carrying out appraisals based on health and socio-economic imperatives. While these appraisals and assessments are not always carried out in the public domain, as it can lead to public panic and consternation, we are able to make firm and decisive decisions. It is in this respect I wish to make some further key announcements. From tomorrow morning at 4 a.m., the Loma border separating Nandi and Notoka will be removed. This will create one large Nandi-Lotoka containment zone, in which people will be able to travel freely to go to work or resume businesses. Businesses will be able to open as long as they adopt the Ministry of Commerce, Trade, Tourism and Transport guidelines. High-risk businesses such as gyms, bars and grog shops will of course remain closed until further notice. And then next Saturday, the borders at the Momi Junction on the Singotoka end of Nandi and at Nadilau on the Ba end of Lotoka will also be removed. The curfew hours for the Nandi-Lotoka containment zone and Vitilevu apart from Lemi Suba Nosori will be from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. beginning tomorrow, Sunday. In the next 7 days, the Ministry of Health will carry out large screening and swabbing exercises within the one Nandi-Lotoka containment zone. Furthermore, from Monday, in 2 days' time, the Ministry of Health and Medical Services will roll out a large vaccination program in the Nandi-Lotoka zone. I firstly wish to thank all those who live in the Nandi-Lotoka zone and those who live outside this zone, but have been impacted by the containment for their perseverance and patience. I know it has not been easy. I also know that many of you understand the necessity of what needed to be done. I ask one thing of you. I also ask the rest of all Fijians in Vitilevu and all over Fiji. Please adhere to the COVID-safe measures. Register to get vaccinated and get yourself and your family vaccinated. It is critical that you do. If you don't, we won't be able to reopen the economy, get you back to your work, businesses, and of course resume normal life. Beginning tomorrow, we will also ease restrictions in the Northern Division and maritime areas, where we have no recorded case of the virus. All businesses, including what is deemed to be high-risk businesses, such as hairdressing salons, gyms, and billiard rooms, will also be allowed to operate. Fijians who wish to travel from Vunulevu and the maritime areas can now return to Viti Levu by sea or air. If you wish to do so, please call 163 to register with the Ministry of Commerce, Trade, Tourism and Transport. I appeal also to all Fijians in Vunulevu and the maritime areas. Please value your COVID-free status. Please also adhere to the COVID-safe measures. Don't take your status for granted. All those in the high-risk businesses, you will be given specific guidelines through the Ministry of Commerce, Trade, Tourism and Transport as to how you should operate. If you don't adhere to them, you will not be allowed to operate. Travel will also be allowed from Viti Levu and containment zones to outside Viti Levu or non-containment zones, but subject to various protocols being met. Ministry of Health is currently working on these protocols and will announce the details within the next 4 days. The Lemi-Suba-Nusori containment zone presents a different situation, but there are still many things we can do to ease the daily burden on the residents of that area. First, beginning tomorrow at 4 a.m., we will eliminate the borders between Suba and Nusori and Lemi. This means that the containment zone will now be bordered at Wainandoi at one end and Longani at the other, while all other perimeters will remain the same. So we will now have one big Lemi-Nusori containment zone. Within this zone, we will still, however, maintain the existing lockdown areas where we know there are known infections. This large containment zone will allow people to go to work and open up businesses, but subject to the strict guidelines established, of course, by Ministry of Health and Ministry of Commerce, Trade, Tourism and Transport. We know that the Lemi-Nusori corridor has the highest number of active cases, and we have seen that due to the neglect of COVID-safe measures, there has been an exponential rise in cases. Therefore, movement in this zone must be for specific purposes. Only essential businesses and businesses that meet Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Tourism and Transport guidelines will be allowed to open, and business owners and managers will be accountable for ensuring that employees, customers, and visitors follow COVID-safe practices. Ministry of Commerce, Trade, Tourism and Transport will announce a list of businesses that can resume work, including businesses that employ large numbers of people, businesses with strict overseas orders that must be filled, businesses that support socio-economic development, and some small businesses that support the most disadvantaged people in the country. We have cut through the bureaucracy of securing approvals and get businesses that can operate within the ambit of our health restrictions open as soon as safely as possible. We will continue with our consultations with various commerce and businesses organizations on specifics regarding some industries. I want to stress that in the Lemi-Nusori zone, high-risk businesses will remain closed. We still encourage the public to stay at home if they do not need to be out for medical reasons, permitted work, or of course essential shopping. The new Lemi-Nusori containment zone will remain under a 6 p.m. until 4 a.m. curfew. My fellow Fijians, funerals and the gatherings surrounding funerals have been a major source of the spread of this virus, and we simply must adjust our ways temporarily in this emergency. We Fijians take the passing of a loved one very seriously. We show our love and respect and we stay with them until we bury them or scatter their ashes in the sea. However, I have to ask this of you as we have no choice. Masking will remain mandatory and people must observe proper social distancing during funerals and functions relating to the passing away of our loved ones. The third-person rule applies before, during, and after the funeral. Please, limit your rengu-rengu or other religious and cultural practices, rituals and prayers before, during, and after the passing away of your loved ones to 10 people. No more. We will, from tomorrow, strictly enforce these measures through the discipline forces. You, of course, can consider holding a more fuller memorial service for your loved one once we can gather safely in large groups. These are our first steps toward reopening the economy and resuming normal life. If everyone strictly does their part to prevent the spread by observing these restrictions, we will be able to continue to relax the restrictions as our cases diminish. So that is what I'm asking of all of you. Be responsible. Take this very seriously. Follow the COVID-safe guidelines that will keep you and your neighbors safe. Most importantly, we are accelerating our vaccination effort as much as we can. The Ministry of Health will have the ability to administer 260,000 first doses of vaccines by tomorrow, because more vaccines have arrived in the country. And vaccines will continue to arrive with little delay. Once a significant percentage of the population is vaccinated, we will be able to loosen restrictions quickly, as you have seen happen in other parts of the world. Fiji is not far behind. Second, as mentioned, we are stepping up our screening and testing, which is already being conducted at an impressive pace by a very dedicated team. I want to point out that contact tracing and testing have been our most effective weapon so far against this virus. Until we can vaccinate ourselves against it, our only defense is to find it and isolate it. Third, as we have already stated, we have sent directly $200 million in unemployment benefits, cash benefits, and micro, small, and medium assistance since last year, April. You may recall that last year some had said we needed to give more than what we did, but they did not look beyond the first few months. Our argument has been that like all other governments in the world, did not know how long this pandemic would stay around for and affect our economies and livelihoods. We always need to look beyond our noses. We need sustainability. As a result of our prudent management of our finances, we have the capacity to continue to provide those benefits and expand it to those who now need further assistance. I announce tonight that through the Ministry of Economy, we will extend the Phase 2 and Phase 3 of the FNPF benefits, which commenced last year, June, for another month or equivalent to 2 fortnight payments. This will cost government directly approximately $21 million. FNPF will release $6 million, a total of $27 million. Those who qualified for the one-off $220 payment because they were in a lockdown area will now be able to access 2 additional payments of $220, in other words, $440 from their FNPF accounts. Government will top up the balance of those with insufficient funds. We expect there will also be some new applicants in this category. This will cost government directly approximately $4 million. FNPF will release approximately $9 million, a total of $13 million. The above collaboration in these schemes between FNPF and government will benefit over 60,000 Fijians, those in the informal sector, and who do not qualify under any other assistance scheme and are not employed will be able to receive a payment of $50. Under the previous payment scheme, through the money wallets of M-Pesa and MyCash, it was only restricted to households in the containment zones, but under this new scheme, all individuals 18 and above in Viti level will qualify. Further information on this scheme will be detailed by Tuesday. We expect that this initiative will cost government directly $10 million, targeting about 200,000 Fijians. Fourth, we will present legislation to change enforcement of COVID emergency as soon as Parliament sits. The legislation will allow for on-the-spot payment of fines for not wearing masks and businesses not adhering to COVID-safe measures. It will seek to make businesses equally accountable for non-compliance by employees and customers. For example, business owners who allow patrons into their establishment without masks would be penalized as well as the patron. After more than 3 violations, businesses may be shut down. My fellow Fijians, we were COVID contained for more than 1 year. We had reason to be proud of what we had accomplished, while other countries suffered under an enormous strain. A few acts of carelessness and inattention, as we have seen happen in all countries, brought this virus down on us again. But we were prepared. Our health professionals and other public personnel have worked tirelessly, as they did a year ago, to contain this virus and get us back to normal. We are making progress again. But the rest is up to all of us, not just the Ministry of Health, not just the RFMF and the police. We need individuals, families, communities. We need businesses, businesswomen and men to participate in making these measures work. We, as government, have also learned that the private sector must be made to participate in spaces that currently is seen only as a domain of the public sector. I hope that you now understand that your direct lack of compliance, or your family members, or your people in your street, your community, your village, or your workplace, will mean that you may eventually lose your job, may not have a source of income, may not be able to operate your businesses, big or small. We are all in this together. We all must not tolerate or turn a blind eye to non-compliance with the COVID measures. Our negligence or tolerance will be to our own detriment. We must be firm. We must not compromise. We must be vigilant. My fellow Fijians, we need to do 2 things. 1, get vaccinated and practice COVID-safe behavior, including having your Care Fiji app and Bluetooth turned on at all times. We know what keeps us safe, so let's do it. Together, we can get our Fiji back and once again live the lives we love. Vinakawa levu, and God bless you all.